R1 billion on 3,000 new police officers is what the Western Cape plans to spend on its most comprehensive and expensive safety plan to date. The province has one of the highest murder rates in the world. And Alan Winder, the Western Cape Premier, joins us now live from Cape Town. Alan, thank you so much for your time. Before we get into some of the comprehensive safety plans that as the Western Cape province you have on standby to implement, let's talk about the crime rate in Cape Town specifically. Are you winning or losing the battle against crime there?
Well, of course, I think, as we know, we do have a very high crime rate per capita. We might not be the biggest in South Africa, but per capita it is a big issue. 50% of all murders in this region happen in 10 of our 150 police station precincts. It is very concentrated, and it is a really big issue for us. We've got to get the crime rates down. We're 4,500 police men and women too few in our province, and of course it is a national competency. And so I've been in office now probably 120 days. One of the big issues identified in the province is how do we make this province safer, and so hence this plan. We've been working on it. We've had experts. I must really thank them. So it's a two-pronged approach. The one is the actual policing. So we've now committed 1 billion rand. It's actually over 1 billion rand. We're going to be putting 3,000 officers on the ground, backed up by another 150 investigators to make sure that when we make arrests, we investigate, we put dockets together, and we get convictions, because that's also a big issue in our province and in our region. And then we'll back this up with data management. We need to be able to be putting the resource where the problems are. But of course, it's not only about policing and the criminal justice system, it's about prevention. So much of the plan is in the announcement is policing, but also remember that every single minister in the cabinet of the Western Cape government, every department has got a safety priority as well. It's about early intervention. It's about the first 1,000 days of a child's life. It's about identifying young boys specifically at risk in primary school already. It's about looking at those 10 and 15 hotspot areas where we have the highest crime rates. How are we intervening in just getting normal society to operate? How are we working with schools? How are we looking at the general safety of the environment, the built environment? Does it have sufficient street lighting? Does the economy back it up? Are there jobs behind the interventions, etc.? So it is definitely a full whole of government prevention program over time, so that we build value sets in young children in our school system to keep those children from being pulled into the negatives in society and becoming the gangsters or the criminals of the future. We need to have that long-term intervention. So the one is the immediate sort of power plan, but the other is the long-term plan, even way beyond my term of office, that we kickstart a plan to change society, values in society, to build a safe province.
Now, Cape Town made headlines this week, Alan, when a family was, of course, raided in. There were 3 children, including a teenager who was killed. Their mothers, of course, sustaining very serious wounds. I understand that as part of your plan, you also aim to identify those families that are most at risk of violence.
Correct. So, and that's the tragedy of today. So, our MEC, Minister of Community Safety, I get these messages every day. And, of course, that tragedy when someone just bursts in, the children get shot, the mothers are wounded. These deaths are just absolutely shocking, and they happen on a regular basis. So we've got to intervene with the families. We've got to intervene because that's where it starts. It's about, and I said the first 1,000 days, it's from conception to 2 years old. The health department will be focusing on that specific priority. But how do we prepare families? How do we prepare school teachers? How do we look at caregivers? Families might not have a mom, so then who's the caregiver, and how do we give that mother or the caregiver the wherewithal to be able to help that child, and especially also identifying those children within those families that are at risk. How are we identifying them? What data mechanisms do we use to identify? And then what are the plans that we put in place? If you grow up in an area that is crime-ridden, if you at the moment are walking to school and you have to step over a dead body because the gangs have been shooting each other, what does that do to your psyche as a school child? We've got to fix that. We've got to intervene. We've got to make sure that those young children that are at risk, we've got programs in place. We've got a very, very exciting program called the Chrysalis Project. But the Chrysalis Project, how do we expand it? We take teenagers at risk, pull them into the project. We put them in a boot camp for 3 months. We teach them, whether they're boys or girls, to weld, but we also teach them computer skills and how to cook. We then give them a year's job in government, but how do we make that as a pathway to a permanent job so that they make a difference in the society that they come from? We've got to change, we've got to get behavioral change so that we get those long-term changes in the basis of how criminality starts and how it manifests over time, and we need to reverse those. Use world best practice, use our own experiences, test things. If they don't work, change them. But this is a major plan, and it's not normally a province's job. We normally have oversight. We are now taking on full responsibility. I will be bringing this all together every 6 weeks in a safety cabinet. So where all ministers in the province have to report on their matrix, the overall matrix, but we will also bring local governments where their municipal policing are reporting and their law enforcement officers, but also the criminal justice system. How do the police in this province report to the cabinet of a provincial government on frameworks and statistics, right, and on targets, and how we're measuring people to targets, as well as the whole criminal justice system, right from correctional services to the judiciary and the public prosecution.
Let's talk about the criminal justice for a moment. I know that the National Defence Force has been deployed in Cape Town, and I understand that they would be there at least until early next year. As the Western Cape province, are there any plans to prolong this partnership that you have right now with the SANDF in Cape Town, of course, in terms of their presence and assisting where the police perhaps may be lacking?
So, I mean, I wrote the letter to the President to say thank you very much. We had the 2-month deployment. We asked for an extension to that deployment to build stability in specifically the 15. The Army are helping with the 15 hotspot areas. They're under control of the police, and I'm really grateful that we've got the military here for that stability until March next year. That gives us the opportunity to also bring in at least the first 1,000 of the 3,000. So we've got boots on the ground. And at the same time, we also will be continuing to ask for more police resourcing coming from national government to this region. And so between the province, between the city, we've built this partnership, but also I had a discussion yesterday after the launch with the National Commissioner of Police. How do we integrate, how do we use these 1,000 boots on the ground that I want this year as force multipliers, so that when the military do leave at the end of this deployment, we've created the stability and we've started to really have an impact on arrests, removing criminals from society, but at the same time then, as I say, also building the long-term sustainable changes within society. That these things take a long time. It's not a quick fix, and it's got to be both. It can't be one or the other.
Thank you so much, Alan. That's the Western Cape Premier, Alan Winder, joining us live from our Cape Town studios.